Good evening. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019. This is a public hearing of the Speedway Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm Mike Simonson, Chairman of the Board. Board members in attendance tonight are Mike Allen, our Vice Chairman, Tyler Carmichael, our Secretary, Janet Fullen, and Steve Jones, members of the Board. Also in attendance is Tim Ramian, our Recording Secretary. Representing the Indianapolis Department of Metropolitan Development is Ms. Kathleen Blackham. Have all who wish to speak been sworn in?
Yes, they have.
Thank you. Would all please mute or turn off any cell phones at this time. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rules for those who wish to speak this evening are the petitioner and remonstrator or proponents will each have 15 minutes to present their evidence. We will then hear a report from Ms. Blackham. After her report, there will be a 5-minute rebuttal period. Has everyone had a chance to review our minutes from our previous hearing?
Yes.
Are there any corrections or changes?
Not that I've seen.
They will stand as presented. Our first petition for this evening is 2019 UVS 001, 4747 West 16th Street. Will the petitioner or their representative please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record?
Hi, Michael Watts, American Structure Point, 7260 Shadeland Station, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm here representing Speedway Redevelopment Commission for the redevelopment of the parking lot along 16th Street next to the Wilshaw development. Here today in regards to variances, several different variances for lot coverage, setbacks, and landscaping for that site. The site's an odd-shaped site, as everybody can see on the plan. What we'd like to do is provide additional parking for the Wilshaw development on that site and maximize the number of parking spots that we can fit and provide to the Wilshaw development. The biggest challenge with that site is the utility easements that go along with it. There are two large gas distribution lines that run through the site. With those easement requirements, it limits greatly what you can do landscaping-wise. With the Marathon line, they only allow seeded grass areas, no trees, no bushes, no shrubs, anything like that. So it makes it a challenge to meet landscaping requirements. Really, I think the plan sheet overall shows the challenges of that site and what we face to maximize the parking for the development.
So the island in the middle of the parking areas will just have a grass covering?
It would just be seeded due
grass.
to the location of it next to the Marathon site.
I guess any of the areas, with the exception of the parking lot gap between 16th Street and the parking spaces, will just have a seeded covering of grass?
Correct. It's hard to see on the drawings a little bit, but if you track where exactly all the easements are, there's just a very small triangular shape kind of in the northeast corner of the site that isn't encumbered by any sort of easement. And there's probably a 10 by 5 foot area that would fall outside of the paved area that you could fit any sort of landscaping into.
And this parking lot is going to be for the use of the hotel?
Correct.
And their sole use only?
Correct. Yeah. Access to it would be by coming into the Wilshaw development off of 16th Street, and then there's an access drive going to the east to get to the parking lot.
Is this for guests or is this for employees or both?
The thought is primarily guests, you know, if they do have valet parking, you know, that's the option, that's the area that they would do valet parking to, but it could be used for both.
And the other purpose for this was part of the original, I guess, big picture planning of that zone with the apartments and the hotel, and this helps to provide enough parking that the town has some public spaces available along Main Street.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, if you didn't have this area available for parking, that parking would then just move into the parking that's right next to the apartments and to the hotel, so you'd start limiting what would be available on a daily basis.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner?
I have none.
Steve?
How many spaces do you have there?
25?
Let me see.
Is that a fair guess? No. One, two,
Count 37, 33,
32,
37.
37.
36, 37.
Got that one in the corner there that's kind of
Yep.
interesting.
I think we're good.
Any other questions, Steve?
No.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Are there any remonstrators or others who wish to speak on this petition? Seeing none, we'll now hear from Ms. Blackham.
Good evening. Kathleen Blackham with the Department of Metropolitan Development. As you will note from the staff report, staff is recommending denial of this. And it's primarily related to the fact that, and staff understands that the surrounding, some of the surrounding properties would not be negatively impacted, such as the Speedway station there to the east and the industrial uses to the south. However, this is a very high visibility and prominent location, and it's part of that gateway into Speedway. There's been some explanation about why they can't put landscaping in, but I heard there was some area that has a possibility to install landscaping, and staff would like to see that occur. Again, there would not be any in landscaping. Well, they indicated there would be some grass area in the interior there, but no green belt. And obviously, they're paving the entire site, so its entire site will be impermeable. And that is a variance that is requested here, or that is being requested. Understand parking. Parking is an issue throughout Marion County. However, again, I get back to the location of this and it being at the entrance to the Speedway and the main street. There's been a lot of resources and energy put into the main street, and it has really upgraded and improved. And then to put a parking lot there at that area, at that location, staff has a concern about that. The other thing staff is concerned about is that if this is granted, then there's going to be future requests for elimination of landscaping. And it seems to staff that the Redevelopment Commission should be setting an example in terms of landscaping, and that is important to the appearance and the pedestrian experience, and a really an amenity that should be focused and supported. So for those reasons, staff is recommending denial, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
In doing some research, I spoke with both pipeline utilities that intersect the site, and one of them is more restrictive than the other, and their requirement or their restriction is the only type of landscaping that could be done is seeded grass. No ornamental grasses, no shrubbery, no trees, strictly seeded grass. And from what I saw where the pipelines cross the site, their right-of-ways pretty much encumber 95% of that site.
Right, but,
And I'm not sure what other use could fit there, or if it's going to look that much different than
that's
what they're
true.
proposing. They can't put a structure on it. There's no parking available if you put a structure there for some type of small business, or I'm not even sure how the business that was there prior managed to have that building.
Would they be able to put pots with landscaping?
They want to have full visibility. Because that was, another question was, are there any alternatives? And they said no, because they do a weekly flyover of every mile of their pipeline to inspect it and make sure that there's nothing happening in the area that they're not aware of, or that there's no failures or other concerns that they need to address.
But I thought I heard the petitioner indicate that there was an area that could,
She said it was the northeast corner. He might be able to clarify that. That would be maybe out by the 16th Street edge of the parcel.
but some relief from all that paving would be, the staff believes that would be appropriate. And
Okay.
I understand that we've had to deal with those in the previous situations about what's permitted on gas.
I'm not sure
gas
what other
lines.
utility poles or things might already be
Yeah,
in that little corner. Apparently, there's been quite a bit of activity with IPL and burying power lines to help facilitate some of the other development on Main Street. And
yeah.
this is where they all come back up and run back onto the grid.
Understand that.
So, any other questions for Kathleen?
So basically, they can't build a structure on this. Am I correct?
Based on the location of the pipelines, I don't think that this is a viable piece
Right.
of land for much other than a grass patch or
Correct.
parking lot.
And I know your desire is to see, you would rather see a small business or something, but
Well, I'm not saying that there, and I understand, because there have been other locations throughout Marion County where there are high-pressure lines going through, and we understand the only thing that you can put on there is a parking lot. You cannot put a structure. But it seems like there needs to be a little bit of give in terms of some relief from all of that asphalt that will be going in. It'll be paved from, I'm sure, from boundary to boundary.
Do you know of any permeable type of surfaces that could be used to construct
Well,
a
you've
parking
got,
lot versus asphalt or concrete?
Well, there are those blocks, and I can't remember what the name of them are, but they're blocks that allow parking on them, but they allow grass to come up through them. And that might be an option, but
I guess it depends on how much traffic is
exactly.
through that space of what other maintenance does that require?
Yeah, and they're using, there have been a couple of situations where they've used that type of surface when it's like an emergency access for fire engines into a subdivision rather than paving an entrance. They will lay this, it's a series of blocks that allow water
That's
to
an
go
area they
through
wanna-
and go through, pass through, yes.
Have it look like grass.
But at least it does give some surface for cars and for heavy vehicles to travel on.
does this parking lot overtake the existing sidewalk that's there
No. It borders the sidewalk.
that borders it?
It must be, yeah, it
Right
would
up
have
to the sidewalk.
border, yeah.
There's-
I'm sure the right-of-way there is right up against the sidewalk,
Okay.
and that's typically where the boundary line is. It's probably difficult to tell from the aerial
It is a
because
little
of
bit.
where the lines to identify the site have been placed, and the width of those makes it difficult to see exactly where the edge is.
Any other questions for?
And just for your information, the red line that shows in there, that's a zoning boundary. The yellow is the right-of-way, just so that you have some reference. And then the white, of course, outlines the site. And
So
they are in the right-of-way,
they're not even in SZ1.
right? They're not,
They're in no man's land.
right. Exactly. You are correct.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any rebuttal?
Just a couple of small items I will point out. The lot currently is a dirt/gravel lot, so it's not a nice grassy patch currently. So it is being used as temporary parking, and there's vehicles and gravel already out there, so I'll point that out. Also, just clarify, I know you mentioned, that area that we could possibly fit a little bit of landscaping into. It does just fall in this corner right here, just off the edge. And I can show you as well, there's just a small area, corner right there. And I don't think there'd be any issue with putting a little bit of landscaping in there. It's just a very limited area.
It's the little square that's by the entrance to the Speedway gas station off 16th Street.
Correct, and it's still even restricted there because of how close you are to the right-of-way and everything else. So there's still some other easements in that area that restrict it.
So there could be, you're willing to
I don't
commit
know.
to putting some level of, is it this area right here?
This tiny little square that you could put
This-
it in.
So it's that internal corner?
Yeah,
Okay. So it's like a 5x5
correct.
section? Okay. Was there any consideration given to a permeable paving surface?
The challenge you face with that is, with the pipeline there, is they restrict you actually lowering the grade. When we do any work above the pipeline, we have to profile that pipeline, and we're limited on, how little cover we can have above it. So we had to profile that pipeline, and the feedback we got from the pipeline companies is they don't want to go any lower than what existing grade is in there. So when you start talking about permeable pavers and things like that, to get the pavement section in, to do that, you're actually digging deeper, because you have typically an engineered soil or something that water can flow through below those pavers as well. So it's something that we'd probably be restricted on due to the pipeline limiting how far we can cut.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Yes, I have one. Are you doing curbs around this and the island, or no?
It'll have curb around the entire thing.
Okay.
Because I know one of the concerns was, people somehow gaining access into Wilshaw or through another way, jumping, getting into that parking lot, and it'll have curb around the entire.
So then the only access point to this parking lot will be through the hotel?
Correct.
Gotcha.
And I think you indicated earlier you had a little bit of trouble getting authorization for the curbing even?
Yeah, I know.
Pipeline because
Yeah,
of
they want as little as possible within their right-of-ways, so that was a discussion we had early on.
So they're-
Any kind of construction, once you are dealing with the pipeline, they'll have a representative on site while this entire thing is being constructed within their easement.
Entertain a motion to vote on this petition?
Would like to make a motion for a vote.
Vote on 2019 UVS 001.
Correct.
Okay. As presented. No restrictions or any modifications.
Petition 2019 UVS 001 is approved 5-0.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is 2019 UVS 002, 3970, 3980, and 4000 West 10th Street, Heritage Crystal Clean.
Hello, my name is John Smeltzer with the law firm of Scopelitis, Garvin, Light, and Hanson, 10 West Market Street. I'm here representing Heritage Crystal Clean in regard to two variances filed under case number 219 UVS 002. We're requesting a variance of use and development standards to allow for a flare structure, which is shown here on the drawing. It'll be constructed at 4000 West 10th Street property on the north side of 10th Street and adjacent to Eagle Creek. As shown on the plans, the flare structure will be connected by a pipe to the main Heritage Crystal Clean facilities. Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Oh. The flare will be approximately 70 feet in height and will have a new accessory building which is also being proposed for the same property. As discussed in the staff report, this is a 23.8 acre site zoned SC2. It's surrounded by industrial uses to the north, east, and west. They're also zoned SC2. The comprehensive plan recommends heavy industry for this site. Staff supports these variances because there will be minimal impact on the surrounding land uses. And the previous variances have been granted on this property for an 82-foot tall and 90-foot tall processing tower and a 96-foot tall stack heater. This floor will be located between the IPL substation and the railroad tracks. The purpose of the flare is for safety in the event of a fire at Heritage Crystal Clean. Any gases or fumes fueling a fire will be sent from the processing plant through the piping to the flare. And this flare will be, these gases will be burned off in the flare. The flare would only be utilized in the event of an accident and for maintenance purposes. Heritage Crystal Clean's hope is it's never used. It's a state-of-the-art safety facility, and it's a device in the industry that protects both the facility and the neighboring community. We met with the neighbors 2 weeks ago and advised them that this would not be a flare like you see at a oil processing facility where you'll see a flame at all times. Hopefully you'll never see a flame there. The issues raised at this meeting had little to do with the variance, had more to do with odors and fluff from the facility, and I think we addressed those problems, but I'm sure there are people here to speak on their behalf. We prepared findings of fact and believe that the proposed flare structure will help protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the town. We don't feel the value of areas adjacent to the property will be affected in any substantial way or any adverse manner because they're all zoned SC2. The use or values of the adjacent property will actually benefit from the flare in that it will provide protection to the facility and to the adjoining neighborhood properties. The existing use of the property fits with others in the neighborhood, and in order to protect the uses on the subject property and the neighborhood, these variances are needed. Finally, the strict application of the zoning ordinance constitutes an unusual and unnecessary hardship applied to the property because the safety of the town should be the first priority. A strict application of the zoning ordinance would prohibit the petitioner from being able to significantly increase the safety on site and to the adjacent neighbors. The grant doesn't substantially interfere with the comp plan because it proposes heavy industrial uses. If you have any questions in regard to the flare itself, Glenn Casborn, our engineer, is in attendance, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So you indicated this would only be used if there was
It's for safety.
a situation at the facility,
Correct.
that they would redirect.
The gases,
Who's to say that the issue isn't going to compromise that redirection process,
Glenn, you want to address that?
and that that the gases could never be put over there because
Yeah, Glenn Casborn, Vice President of Engineering and Operations for the refinery. Currently, today, we've only got 2 vent stacks. We don't have a flare on site, and typically flares need a setback. Usually, large refineries will have 300 to 400 feet. We had to actually purchase this property in order to do it. So you can have a situation where an operator accidentally, inadvertently blocks in a valve before, closes before he opens, and creates a blocked-in situation. And in the hydrotreater, that situation, we have relief valves that protect the facility and the equipment, but that release would just today go through an emergency vent drum and up to atmosphere and create a vapor cloud. By having the flare, it's an enclosed flare, so the flame is inside a very large can. You may have seen some of these flares at gasoline
from a
handling.
Rock Island refinery up on the north side.
I mean, Caldair makes a little time for VOC control. This is a big one. It's 25-foot diameter by 65 feet tall, and you got to put it 5 feet off the ground to get the air in there. So there are 2 ways. One, you can have an emergency, what we call an emergency situation where a guy closes before he opens, and that'll send it. We have pressure protection in place where we can actually shut the equipment down before he finishes closing the valve. So we have high integrity pressure protection that will shut the feed pumps and compressors, and it does work successfully, but still, most refineries have this, they've always got a flare at the back end, that just in case, it's what you do. The other thing that could happen is you have a fire on the unit, and you shut the equipment down, and we have the ability to hit what we call a Hick valve, and you hit a particular valve and it depressures the unit at a controlled rate. That can go to the flare as well. So what this prevents is having a vapor cloud over the facility with H2S in it, which will smell like a natural gas.
But is that the odors that we currently smell around the facility on a
You'll see,
regular basis?
there's a lot of sulfur in lube oil, in engine oil, and what you're smelling are maybe some packing leaks. Yes, we do have inadvertent odors, not the type of cloud that this thing's designed. This is a big release. This would create a...
The odors seem to be fairly regular.
Yeah, the odors are something we're working on every day. And
I think we've had previous variances that were supposed to address some of that odor control. And
well, certainly, a lot of the odor, not a lot. There are odor situations when we are on maintenance, and the flare is also designed and permitted to take 5 specific venting, if you will, where we go to heaters today, which will be better if we go to the flare. So we purge our equipment before we open it, and you got to steam it, and you got to send it somewhere. And this is permitted to handle off gases from steaming out of our scrubbers. So we have sodium hydroxide scrubbing to knock the H2S out of our off gas before we combust it. And so we've got reactors that we purge and when we take offline. V403, V5.
Reactors on a weekly basis.
Yeah, the reactors are weekly. What else? We got V510 too?
Yeah, and the shutdown.
And the shutdown. for shutdowns. So it will help with environmental, but essentially it's there for safety.
So will this help reduce some of the odor
Should.
that we're,
It should.
and what is that odor?
It's sulfur.
So it's nothing that is good for us to be breathing.
You know, it only takes very small ppb, like natural gas, it's 5 parts per billion that you smell. Smell goes a long way, yes, unfortunately. And,
But when I can smell it miles away from your facility,
we have.
would indicate a pretty large
We do have
amount
incidents.
of
Yeah, we do have incidents that from time to
product in
time.
the air.
Yeah. We have things that happen, and we try to correct them. We had something that happened the other day, and we ended up disciplining our people for not handling it properly. We load VGO on rail cars, and they're meant to have carbon canisters, and the carbon canisters have to be fresh carbon. And if they don't do that, then sometimes we don't find out till the odors have already propagated off the property, and then we do everything we can to fix it, including people from time to time.
What would the neighbors notice if you had to set the flare? What kind of impact would they?
They won't be able to see. The flame burns in underneath almost like a pilot in a Weber grill when you light your Weber grill. So there's a distribution set of pipes that are inside the can, probably 7-8 feet off the ground, and the can covers that. So you wouldn't even know it. If there was a big release, you'd see maybe some light come out of the top of it, but the neighbors would not be aware of.
No noise?
We have there's a sound fence that travels all the way around it. And to date, we've not had a big release. We've been operating for 7 years now, and we hope not to have a big release.
So if the flare is activated and it's burning, is there an odor out of the top of that stack?
We
From
have,
that burn off?
we have.
Is there a scrubber in
No,
that stack?
no, there's no scrubber in it. We looked at a scrubber. The problem of having a scrubber work for 10 years and all the freezing and all the reliability issues, it was better. We only reduced, you would need a very large scrubber for this big release. So you'd have a piece of equipment. We tried to quench the thing down, and it took the price tag. This is a $9 million flare. Took us up to $15 million, and we only reduced the hydrocarbon by about 1/3. So we still needed a significant flare just the same. So we did look at that case.
So will there be odors present in the neighborhoods if this were in operation?
I don't expect so. I mean, for the big release, yes, there might be a little bit of a cloud that comes out of it too, but it'll be fully combusted. We can't get enough steam in there to make it completely smokeless for the big event, but we're hoping not to have the big event.
And in light of some situations in the news of late down in Houston, are those types of situations a possibility at your facility?
Regarding the tankage?
No.
Yeah.
Explosions and the...
Yeah, you really, when you have a situation that happens at the plant, and we had a fire 3 weeks ago, I mean, you really want to depressure the equipment as quickly as possible to actually prevent and do a controlled release. And the only controlled release that we have, we could not do a controlled release through our existing fired heaters. We'd burn them to the ground with this size volume, but with this flare, we could.
And what environmental impact is there from the issues that you've had where you have these fires and they have to be controlled? And
most of the fires that we've had since inception have been put out in a minute to 90 seconds. This one that we had recently took a little longer.
do you have on-property fire protection?
Yes, we have
Do you utilize outside services?
No, we've got two 2,500 GPM foam pumps, 100% foam system. And the foam did work. Unfortunately, our emergency shutdown cut the snuffing steam, and we have to redo that. We weren't aware of the boilers getting tied into our ESD. But
What happens to that foam after it's,
it stays on site. We put the new curb project in. Maybe some of you are aware of it's called the 10th Street Interceptor Project. So we have a curb all the way along the front of the facility, and we managed to keep all the foam on the site.
stays on site to be,
Yep.
goes into
Yep.
a holding pond or a?
Yeah, there's two interceptors, one on the far side, but they find their way. The entire area is sloped towards the corner, right next to IPL, right in the southwest corner of the facility.
So the likelihood of contaminating the site is minimal?
Minimal.
And
It's all paved or concreted.
is there any kind of insurance policy in play that will remediate that in the future if
We
you
have
guys leave town and
Yeah,
there's a,
yeah, you have to have a closure document. It's something that you're required to do. So we don't plan on going anywhere.
but you have insurance in place for liability for that?
You've got to make sure you've got enough money to cover whatever it is, whether it's contamination. The site's already contaminated from the Texaco days, and that's all been in a phase 1, phase 2, so we know what's in the ground. But yes, we would be required to clean up anything that was untoward.
Okay.
Yep.
So the landscaping plan that's submitted, is this just reference to what's already in place along the Holt Road and 10th Street, or are these
That's all new.
all new?
Yeah, it's all new.
So
Along
are
with
you
this-
replacing everything that's currently there?
There's nothing there today.
From Holt Road down, there's been some landscaping.
Well, there's
down.
our landscaping, yes. Yeah, we got to take out the dead trees and replace them.
And replace those
Yeah.
up.
And then put all new trees and a sidewalk in along all the way to,
Now,
Little-
will that
Little
go
Eagle
in
Creek.
front of the substation, or will that be a break in it?
no, that'll go in front of the substation.
So
That's the
it'll
plan.
be improved all the way down to the creek?
Yeah, yeah.
So are there any concerns from Idem or the DNR about the location of this next to Little Eagle Creek?
We have not talked to Idem about the, we are required to stay back from the creek, a certain zone. There's certain things we can touch along the creek, but certainly I think within 25, or is it 50 feet? We can't touch anything.
The setbacks are appropriate on this.
Yes, yeah. We do have, I think the biggest deal is making sure the 200-year-old tree, but I believe that some of these trees can go as credit for the 200-year-old tree. There's a big oak in the back that's within proximity of the flare that we'd have to take it down. Wouldn't be wise to leave it there.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner?
None at this time.
See? No?
Next time.
Anybody here who wishes to speak for or against the current petition? Please step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Edgar Ralph Crabtree, Jr. I live at 970 North McClure Street. That's exactly across the street from the plant. I will read the letter that I received from Aries Consulting. This is July 1st, 2014. This is like 2 years after they began. It says, Mrs. Kathleen A. McCord, Vice President of Environmental Health and Safety, Heritage Clean, LLC, 2175 Point Boulevard, Suite 375, Elgin, Illinois. Indianapolis Foundry, heater particle material. Aries has investigated the bulk material that is causally discharged from your oil dehydrator heater, and the majority of this material is posted on your property, but it generally settles in the air in a few minutes or less. On some occasion, the wind blows strong enough to transport it to neighboring property. Aries has sent a material to a laboratory for medical identification. The laboratory only identifies qualities of a few metals. That goes way beyond the smell. This material present is in large pieces and will not break down to inhalability or respiration of such particles. We tried to attempt a laboratory to conduct a crystalline silicon particle size is too large. Well, now, after they put another filter on, this is the second filter they put on, they break them down to very, very smaller particles, but they still fly through the air, landing on the cars, landing on their houses, and now they're inhalable. Also, I have video from February 15th in 2015, before the filter was put on. They fired this up. Black smoke rolled for 30 minutes. Crystals fell out of the air. Fire department, I don't know how many respond to that. June 19th, the fire department in hazmat and the code enforcement officer for Speedway was there. There was probably 30 fire department vehicles there. January 10th of this year, now IDM, we stayed in contact with them. They went over there and talked to them about these white particles all over. They sent their employees over to pick them up off of my property and neighboring property. So we contacted IDM. They went over there and talked to them. IDM said they recognize they have a problem, and they spending $3.8 million on a filter in Texas to put on there. Well, all this period of time that they was building this in Texas, they continued just running like all get out. Well, now they got the new filter on, and that's, like I said, it doesn't do nothing. You say you know the smell. The smell to me is horrendous living that close to them. And the particles has medical traces. And any time, I didn't know there was an oil refinery. They made the statement there was a refinery. Anytime you refine used oil, there's all kinds of metals in it, from the engine and everything, from the bearings and chromium and stuff in there. They get up there on a catalytic converter, I would call it a catalytic converter, this ash, that's what they call it, collects on top of it. They get up there and just blow it off. Whichever direction the wind blows, that's which direction it goes. Mainly, the wintertime, the wind blows from the north, it's all over my property. I got video of pieces rolling around in the snow, big chunks. This is in January the 20th.
How big are these pieces?
The size of popcorn.
I have copies of it. Sir, it's on my vehicle out here.
These are the minute particles after they filtered them down.
Yes.
You mean, January, I called them, and they said, well, we realized that we have a problem, and it says, I called the main office back to the people. They said the filter had a problem, it would be fixed by the end of the month. But January 20th, that's still going on. You know what I mean? There's nothing we can do. IDM just, you know what I mean, kicks the can on down the road. Buddy, money is what seems to be the problem here. They got all the money they want to, they just do what they want to, you know? That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Can I speak on that particle?
Anyone who wishes to speak needs to step
State
up
your
to the
name.
podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Paula Crabtree. I live at 970 North McClure Street. As Crystal clearly knows, my husband, Edgar, has lived up here all his life. I moved up here in 2013. I have been calling continuously, complaining about particles in my yard. We wanted chickens. We want a garden. We want to be able to go out and get in a vehicle. Like I said, this stuff, I'm originally from Washington, Indiana, which is 2.5 hours southwest of here. It literally rides with me to Washington and back, you know? And like my husband has stated, the particles are getting smaller, so who's to say we're not inhaling this stuff? And like he said, IDM, they know about it. In fact, I don't know the dates for sure, but I have called the last 2 times. Normally I get a reply from somebody, and nobody has replied to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ricky Walker. I live at 958 North McClure. okay, sometime we get this odor. It has been in my house, you know, and if it gets in your house, it stays in your house, you get a headache, you know, and we get the particles, you know, and, you know, I love to barbecue. Who wants to go outside and barbecue and this stuff is falling on your barbecue? Who wants to eat this stuff, you know, and like I said, you know, I guess it's all about money. They have money, and, you know, we just supposed to, you know, just sit here and whatever happens, you know. You know, and it can't be healthy for people, you know.
Okay.
And I have been over there numerous times. I had been over there, talked to them. Okay, one time they said we are, you know, we're going to get this problem taken care of, you know, but the problem haven't been taken care of.
About how long ago was that?
It was back here during the winter. They know I have came over there a couple of times, and I don't remember who I talked to, but I have, you know, I have driven over there and let them know. And, you know, they say, if y'all got a problem, you know, just call and let us know. You know, they know the problem. They can smell it just like we smell it, I'm sure. You know, why should we have to call them?
And you're speaking to the same particles that your
Yes.
people
Mhm.
spoke to? Okay.
Yes.
And those balls just are coming into your yard as well?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And sometimes you go on side, you know, sometimes you can drive on side the street and just, you know, 10th Street, you can see them as you go out just all over the street, you know. It's not, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Donald Brown. I live at 964 North McClure Street, and I just want to make sure it's sweet. What these people are telling you is the truth. I'm thrown up from this stuff. They need to fix the problem they got now before they go to something else. You know, you wouldn't want to come and live in my house. They didn't mention the South. That's where we live, on the South Side. They're just trying to ignore us. So you can say, call me. That ain't going to do anything. So you think hard before you decide.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, lady.
My name is Chris Noggle. I live at 1235 North Louette Avenue, which is right on the other side of the railroad track from the plant, just due east about, less than a quarter of a mile. And the talking about the fluff and the smell, this is a report that we received from Crystal Clean about the substances that has been put into the air and the ground.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I thought that was you. And it makes your fingers real dry, this stuff does. This stuff that they've been putting out is called silicon dioxide amorphous. And as Mr. Jones knows, I've been trained in a lot of that kind of stuff when I worked in heat-treated Allisons for 15 years. And, you know, silicon dioxide, they use it for all kinds of stuff. They put it in cereal, hamburger helper, they use it as a filler in food. Next time you get a box of cereal, look on the ingredients. But this is different than that. This is an amorphous. It's a chemical change caused by burning fuels down to reclaim them, to make many different substances. I moved in there in 2014, and in the house I bought there, I had no idea what was going on until I looked out there, you know, in the summer and the spring, and it looked like it was snowing out. And since I put my security cameras up, you can see at night when the stuff is just flying around all over the place. And the silicon, the amorphous part of it is actually an oily, acidic residue that sticks on everything that it touches. It's like the lady was talking about, driving all the way down to Washington, Indiana and back, and the stuff's still on her vehicle. If you take it and put it between your fingers and rub it, it won't go away like ash. It'll make a trail across there. And it's akin to acid rain, is what it is. It's not quite like acid rain, but it's an akin to it, for sure. You can see through this report that in all hazardous waste materials, they go through the whole analysis of it. And this isn't a bad report. I've seen better. It's not quite as in-depth as I've seen. This stuff here, and the gentleman was right. We used to get great big chunks of it, and Mrs. Sutters here has many samples of the stuff they've been dumping on our neighborhood for quite a while. Now this got to be soaking into the ground, and I've asked for a ground analysis to be done, and nobody will do it. I had the state out there from Idem, the EPA people, and the state was going to test this stuff, and they called me up and said their machine was broken, and I haven't heard anything from them since. But you can see that this is a breathing hazard. It's kind of like aluminum oxide that we used in a way. They call it a nuisance dust. It's not the same as aluminum oxide, but it's in the nuisance dust category. And it is a Health 1 hazardous material. As you can see in many places in the report in Section 7, handling and storage, do not ingest, do not breathe dust. If ingested, seek medical advice immediately and show the container or the label. This stuff here is, like I say, it's a oily residual acid that comes from cooking down and reclaiming these kind of fuels. And cutting fuels, or cutting fluids, I would imagine. But you're going to run into, like the gentleman was talking about, heavy metals. You're going to run into some of that in all of this. Stuff that sticks around, you can't even have a garden over there. Last summer was horrible. You look under Section 11, toxicological information here, where it talks acute oral toxicity. And I guess they were working on a rabbit at the time. Chronic effects in humans. Effects 3 may cause damage to the following organs: lungs, upper respiratory tract, slightly hazardous in case of skin contact, irritant, ingestion of inhalation. Now, people with COPD or asthma, kids with asthma, that kind of stuff, or kids in general are more susceptible to things like this that could be of a sensitizing nature. Now, I don't know if any of you know what that means or not, but a sensitizing substance is the kind of substance you can live with for a while. And it may not bother you any. But once you get enough of it in your system, you're going to die. They can't do anything for you. You're going to die. This kind of stuff over the years could cause a lot of people problems. And the gentleman behind me here that lives over here on 10th Street didn't tell you about not more than a quarter of a mile from him is a school on Livingston. Okay, or Somerset. There's a grade school there. Now this stuff has been blown out into the atmosphere all over around there. And like I say, it sticks to stuff. So it's sticking to their monkey bars, it's sticking to their swings, their little horses they rock back and forth on, it sticks to the ground. And it's doing the same thing there that it's doing right back behind us. If you think it's not on that stuff back there, it is. Just because the wind blows mostly that way all the time doesn't mean that when it's not blowing, that stuff isn't creating a bubble around the plant in all areas. When people over here hit the ball back and forth on the tennis court, when they touch that ball, they've got some of that on that ball. It might be minute, but for a little bitty kid, that has asthma or something like that, it'd be pretty tough on them. When they play football over here on the other side of the street, or soccer or whatever, that stuff's all over the grass. It's all over everything. It's not quite as bad over here as it is where we live because of the wind situation. Most of the time it's blowing, our way. It's blowing east, either northeast, southeast, blowing to the east from the west. But I have friends here in Speedway that I've known for quite some time that live right across from the church over here. And they find this stuff on their vehicles, and they're quite concerned about it. So I don't know what else I can add to this other than I really don't like having to do this, but somebody's got to do it. And it is on one page here where section 15, it is a health hazard number 1. You'll look through here and see other stuff in here. These letters in the back of this is, it explains that these are the kind of letters that we've been getting. And in a paragraph here, crystalline silica can be harmful if inhaled. This material does not present an inhalation hazard because of its large size. Well, when they started putting filters on this, and let me just say this, it's not what you can see and smell and taste when it comes to chemicals. It's what you can't see, smell, and taste that get you. And it can get you quick, too, especially if you're in a confined space, like we were a lot in heat treat at Plant 5. Now that they've broken the bigger particles down, it's a fine dust. And it is there. I have a gentleman here from the Mayor's Council, a liaison between us and the mayor, and he came by today and we showed him exactly what we were talking about. I don't know if he has anything to say or not, but I wish he would from what he saw. We have another letter here from Mr. Chalab about laboratory analysis confirmed that the material found on your property was not dangerous to people, animals, or the environment. Well, gentlemen, you can sure see, and lady, you can sure see on the report of this, which came from them, crystal clean, that it is a hazardous material substance. And it is being blown all over our neighborhoods. And the smell actually comes, they have pop-off valves on their tanks over there where they store chemicals. And due to the weather, the expansion of the tanks and all that kind of stuff, and the humidity, from time to time those pop-off valves will blow. Now, some companies have a secondary tank to be able to hold that material when it does blow. It'd be hard to keep it from not blowing from time to time because of the weather. But you keep a secondary tank hooked up to that like Eli Lilly has, and they don't have that problem in their communities. Other than that, gentlemen, I got another year to stay where I'm at. I had a 5-year mortgage through the VA, and I got to stay there 5 years before I can sell it or rent it. And what really upsets me about this is if I was to rent the place or sell it, I'd have to tell the people that I'm renting it or selling it to exactly what's going on and in their community, something which wasn't done when I bought the place, and I suspect it wasn't done by the owner before me when they bought it. The people that owned it then didn't tell them about it. So in order for me to sell mine, I'd have to either withhold information or lie, and either one of them really sticks in my craw, and I'm pretty upset about it, really. Anything you can do, you can't just run a reclaim outfit like that in a residential neighborhood. I don't want to see people lose their jobs or this kind of stuff not being able to be reclaimed. But you just can't do it in a residential neighborhood where we have kids, old people with breathing problems, people like us that have to get out and hit a lick every day. you know, eventually this stuff is going to get you down the road. And I'm hoping that you all will put a lot of thought into this going down the road. I would imagine the liability of running a company like that, or even allowing them to do that, would be something I wouldn't want to have to deal with. I'm afraid that this will go to the point to where we'll have to get an attorney to look into all of this, and we have done our research on that. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer anything that I know. I know Mrs. Shutters, my neighbor across the street, has some evidence that she'd like to show you of what's been raining down on us for the last 4, on me for 4, or longer for her, and the smells in the area, which is not very good at all. Can I help you guys with anything? Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your presentation.
Hi, my name's Betty Shutters. I live at 1220 North Louette Avenue. I've been collecting samples since 2014.
Can we see those?
Yes. This is what we find on our cars, on our everything. Our cars are starting to peel. That's what we're getting. And that's the big particles. We have small particles that they're saying the big particles, if inhaled, they are not hazardous. Well, we're getting the small particles now. And we have called them about the smells. I call them, they can verify I've called them a lot. I'm worried about this being built. I know that they're saying that it will help, but it's not going to 100% help with the smells. It's not stopping. They built a bag house. We're still getting that. They're having troubles with it. Until they fix what they've got going on right now, they should not build anything else. They've already had 3 fires over there. We're having problems. Fix what you have going on right now before you do something else. We can't take this anymore. Our families, our animals, my husband, he's never had sinus problems, but he sure got them now. This stuff is still continuing to fall. We're calling them every time it happens. And they should have a log on it. They're telling us that it's not harmful in large particles, but it is in the small. We've got small particles. I take it with tape and put it on my car to get it off. This is just a constant that needs to be stopped. And we've lived there for 41 years, and I'd like to stay there and have my kids have that house. But the rate it's going right now, it's not going to happen. I mean, they've got to be able to do something to control this so that we can live over there. We don't have to smell those smells. We do not have to put up with these particles. We can't even plant a garden. We couldn't eat anything out of our garden last year. It was that bad with these all over it. You can say wash it. I don't want to wash it and eat it. I don't think anybody else will. When you can drive down the road and it's pouring down rain and this is on your car and it doesn't come off, we got a problem. And it doesn't come off. It doesn't blow off. It stays there. It gets wet and it turns almost to a crystal on your car. It doesn't go anywhere. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wishes to speak for or against the current petition?
May I say
Yes.
one more word?
Yep.
I forgot to talk about the burn tower that they're planning on putting up out there. And I was surprised to hear somebody mention Rock Island Refinery. I used to live about 5 miles west of there, so I know all about the smells that can come off of that kind of stuff. We were told at the meeting that, we wouldn't smell anything coming off of that, and we wouldn't hear it. But yet again, it's something that when it goes off, it'll probably sound like a jet engine. May not last very long, but it's probably what it's going to sound like, and there's no way that you can burn these kind of substances in any way that you're not going to smell it. A scrubber would be a good idea, as you mentioned, but without that, if you could put a scrubber on it, but I just don't think that they're ever going to be able to completely eradicate this from our neighborhood. It's a bit much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Not yet.
Okay.
Ms. Blackham, I'd like to hear your report.
Yes, Kathleen Blackham. Staff is recommending approval of this, and subject to the site and the landscape plans that are included in the staff report, and those are file dated the 21st of February 2019. As was previously mentioned, there are taller towers and structures than what is being requested now. This is 70 foot, and the ordinance limits it to 60 feet, so we're talking about 10 feet taller than what the ordinance allows. But in previous variances, I believe it was back in 2009, there were some stacks that were allowed that were much taller, 82 and 90 feet and 96 tall, 96 feet tall. There's also, and I don't know, nothing has been mentioned about this, but there is also a proposed accessory building that would be located in that same area as the flare structure and as well as a concrete pad. And I believe, at least the information that that was filed, it did show that those are going to be offices and some training rooms and that type of thing. But as far as what we're talking about is this flare, which is not a permitted use in the SZ2, and the height, staff is recommending approval of both of those, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm sorry, Kathleen, what did you say on the last two things? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
There are the two requests for the variances. One is the flare, which is not permitted, and the other one is the height, because the height limit is 60 feet. This is going 7 feet, so there are the two variances, and staff is supporting both of those.
Okay, thank you.
What is your knowledge of this fluff that the residents are?
I have none at all. This is the first time I've ever heard of it.
Sir, please keep your comments to yourself. Thank you. So there's been no discussion or no talks with Idem, or DMD rather, regarding these issues that they're bringing to us this evening?
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't, no.
Ms. Blackman?
Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now open the floor for rebuttal.
Okay, so you have something to present on the errors report?
Well, yeah, it was talked about, but
Yeah, well, let's start with the elephant in the room. We've been building a bag house for the last 2 years. I don't know whether any of you are aware of that, but that big
Would
steel...
you repeat what it is you're building? I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, it's a bag house?
A bag house?
A bag house.
Okay.
Like
What
a-
is that?
Bag house is a 3-module structure, which you will see the very shiny metal that we've been working on, and it's connected up to our heater. It's each module contains 200 bags, and we have a large fan that takes all the fluff and is supposed to put it on the bags. So we commissioned this. We sought a Title V permit through Idem and got it. And through EPA as well. And
It's a
EPA
Title V permit.
Title V permit allows us to go higher with NOx and CO at the site. Our NOx permit, we were really tight at the permit that we had, the FESOP permit. It allows you to burn 100 tons, nominally 100 tons of SO2, NOx, and CO, and you can apply for a permit that allows you to go to 250. And because we're non-attainment, the SO2, we're restricted to 100 tons. But NOx, the minute you get up 98, 99, you get over that 100 tons, so we're maybe 120 tons a year.
right now.
And our CO is very low. We're at the 30, 40 tons, 20. And SO2, we're below 100 still. But the bag house is in the Title V as a nuisance. It is a nuisance. Our emissions from that heater passed. So with the fluff. We've met our emissions limits.
Regardless of whether it passes the regulations, it's a nuisance to
It's
the
a
neighbors.
nuisance, and it's in there, it's.
If it were blowing into your backyard, would you be happy?
No, absolutely. We have it in there. It's in the permit. And so what I'm trying to say is, we're on the clock with Idem. We commissioned the bag house December the 20th, and we have 6 months to bring the bag house into compliance. We've had operating issues where the fluff, the silicon dioxide is not allowing the bags, it's blinding the bags, and we need to use either hydrated lime or perlite to try to coat the bags so that we don't build back pressure. What happens is we clean the bags, but they don't restore the back pressure, and eventually, after 10, 15 days, we're out of horsepower on the fan. So we met with the vendor last week, Clyde Bergman, and we plan on doing trials here in the next week to 2 weeks to see if this will work. All said, we have 6 months to bring the bag house into compliance. We have 180 days. We've met with Idem. We've told them our problems. We've also told EPA, and we're going to have to come up with a solution here.
And this bag house, will that reduce or eliminate that fluff?
Yes, it does.
Has anybody notified the residents of that area?
We discussed that 2 weeks ago at a community meeting, and we told them about the problems that we were having and what kind of trials. We've hired a company out of Toronto, Hatch Engineering, specializes in baghouse design. They've done a report for us, and the deficiencies in the baghouse design are major. The fan's too small, it's operating in surge, there's a number of issues that we have to go through with them. So,
Have other facilities utilized these processes to try and reduce their
yeah, typically
nuisance
when you have this type of problem, a bag house is a common solution, but there's, as Idem told us when we went to see them, there's issues with bag houses and operability. They're not plug and play, as our vendor sold it to us. But regardless, we either have to make the bag house work, or we're going to have to do something else. That's a post-treatment method, so where you're treating it downstream of the SiO2 that you created. The other way to do is, if we can't make that work, we're going to have to go upstream and eliminate the problem upstream. So we spent $6.5 million over the last 2 years. I just want you to think that we put a fluff catcher on. We're well aware of the problems in the community. And we meet with them as frequently as we can to at least explain what, if we've had an equipment malfunction. Essentially, we create the silicon dioxide in our thermal oxidizer. The heater creates. There's a lot of silicon in used oil, in lubricating oils that comes back in. And no, we're gonna resolve this problem.
This flare tower that you're actually here for us, in front of us for, does this have any correlation with what the residents are complaining about?
No.
With the fluff or anything like that? This is just purely a safety?
Purely safety. There's no processing with this. This is, again, to protect the community, protect the plant, protect the neighborhood, the people. And yes, it's not like we're we're not going for an expansion permit to process more. This is just to resolve an issue that we've had sitting there since we built the site.
When does your 6-month clock with Idem run out?
Technically, it's 180 days from December 20th, so it's June 20th. And so if we come up with if this lime and perlite work, we'll likely have to request an extension only because the equipment issues that we have. And we'll have to come up with a game plan. So we work with Idem. They're the gatekeeper here. And we're going to have to resolve it. Likewise with EPA. We got EPA watching us too. We're not going to be able to run forever. Let's just put it that way. We know there's a clock, and we're sensitive to it as well. Don't think we're not. Okay, we want to resolve this problem. We're not happy either. And I think you guys know that. You know, we're not just running for the sake of trying to make money and not focusing on this issue. It's a very, it's technically, it's a difficult, the stuff is very light.
This issue's been ongoing for 5 to 7 years.
Well, I don't know that it's been going for 7 years, okay?
The letters that have been provided to us.
Yeah, I don't know
dated
that.
back at least 5 years.
5 years, in varying degrees, it's really.
Why has it taken 5 years to come up with a resolution or a fix for this fluff issue, if you've known about it for 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think it's been increasing over that time.
It should have been dealt with when it was first noticed. Like I said, if that were blowing in my backyard, I wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody in this room that would be happy about stuff falling out of the sky from a processing facility nearby.
We're not happy at the plant either.
But it's taken you 5 years to address.
Well, it's taken us 2 years to build it. It took us a year to engineer it, so, we've been working on this for the last 3 years.
Are you in charge of that operation?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So
So the fluff originally, the big pieces that you see, the heater at its capacity at that time, the stuff would actually store itself up inside the heater, and then, it would just release. Now we get very small particles. We had the bigger stuff. We haven't seen the bigger stuff for some time. And we put we realized putting the fluff catcher on there, you see the birdhouse that's on the top of the stack was a short-term solution, but I wish I could tell you that this is just a one-year project. It's taken quite some time to build it, to order it, get it approved, engineer it.
So by June 20th?
Yep.
Is when your compliance clock runs out with Idem.
Technically.
Unless they get an extension.
We're going to have to go back to them shortly after these tests are done and give them an update, including the community, and we told them that, on how well the blinding agents are going to work, essentially the coating, the hydrated lime or perlite, and then work out a game plan. We have deficiencies in the design of the baghouse.
But you feel that by June of this year, that will be
We'll have an answer. We'll have an answer before that.
up and running and be functional and doing its job?
We're hoping, yes. We're hoping.
How often do you have meetings with the neighborhood?
We meet with them, if Betty calls us or Chris calls us, we'll meet with them same day or the following day, depending on availability.
Can I ask you a question? How many extensions have you had through Idem?
None.
This is your first extension?
We haven't requested it yet, but it would be. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, they tell us one thing, and really don't nobody say anything to us unless one of us have something to say.
Nobody came on our street. We didn't know anything until some guys were walking over in the church lot,
And I was leaving.
This is what I
and
was
he
getting
was
at.
leaving the house.
And we have a phone number that we
You
can
don't
give you.
talk to nobody.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay, hold the mic.
We speak to Betty calls.
How many times have you been fined through?
What's that?
How many times have you
Let's-
been fined through?
Okay.
We need to
For
stop.
contamination.
We need to stop this conversation. That's not part of our hearing.
Yeah.
If you want to have a community meeting with Crystal Clean, you can discuss those topics.
Yeah.
But at this time, I'm inclined to continue this petition until June, when your IDEM initial clock runs out, and see where you're at. And then, if things look like they're in better shape, we'll go ahead and and vote on the petition. But at this time, in light of what's going on and the frustration with the neighborhoods, we need to kind of cool things down.
Well, I thought we had a good meeting 2 weeks ago when we met with them, but
Were these folks at that meeting?
no.
No, we weren't.
No.
Didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
That, I guess that was maybe I should have rephrased it different, but do you notify these people within a certain area of the plant?
We plan on coming out with a smart notice on people's phones. I mean, we talked about that at our last meeting. I mean, we do our utmost. If we think we've had a release or something, we will call Betty or go see Chris and give them a heads up, because they're kind of the community leaders over there. We probably don't have anybody on your side.
There's only 3 people on that road.
Yeah, so.
3 houses
Okay.
on a dead-end street.
But you can add one of those to
No,
it?
we can do the smart notice. We're going to do the smart notice with everybody that we can,
Okay.
that we can do it with.
All right. Yeah, I had one more question for you. How often does the Speedway Fire Department visit your location? Or are you required to have them?
Yeah, they come by annually. We actually just had an annual inspection Tuesday with them, so they do regularly visit.
Annually?
Well, at least annually, but they were just there Tuesday doing an annual inspection. Yes, Speedway was.
Okay.
How often are they there to help you with situations?
During emergencies?
Yes.
But every time we have an emergency, they're called.
How often how often do you have emergencies?
How many times in the last month?
In last month, none. Well, we had the one event. Well, one event we had 3 weeks ago. Other than that, before that, it's been 6-8 months.
Okay.
So how, in
I'd say-
fairness, how many times a year would you say that you need additional assistance with them?
It's been first and 7 years.
With either Speedway or IFD? I think you're kind of on a borderline of coverage.
Once or twice.
Once in the last 7 years?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
twice?
Look, when they generally come, the fire has already been extinguished,
Okay.
so, but they still come.
But I guess the most important thing is what I'm getting at here is I guess that you people and those people are safe, and by the fire department knowing everything about that facility, because it's not like the convenience store on the corner. You know, you got other issues there, that they probably need to know everything about, right?
I give them annual tour, plant tours.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
come out and do this. The inspection the other day was separate from that. We have the volunteer fire, the Speedway Fire Department come by every year to do tours.
Okay. That's what I was
Yeah.
getting at.
Outside of any incidents, yes.
Not that a convenience store is not important, but your facility is a little different.
Few more hazards.
Yeah.
You have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. So, on a voice vote, going to continue this till June, actually be July of this year, because of our meeting date would be shortly after your compliance check with Idem. So, all in favor of continuing this until our July hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:25.